It's December again. Somehow, January feels like 3 weeks ago, and you cannot account for the 11 months in between with any detail that would hold up in court. The months happened. You were there for all of them, presumably doing things, having a life. You have almost no idea what happened to most of them. Here's the part nobody warns you about. It's getting worse. Not at a fixed rate, it's compounding. Year over year, quietly, a year at 40 doesn't feel like a year at 30. A year at 30 was nothing like a year at 20. And a summer when you were 8 was an entire geological era, one that somehow also ended before it started. Two contradictory things, both true at once, no contradiction resolved. Why? Not a rhetorical question, there's a real, specific, testable answer, and it's stranger and considerably more useful than most people expect. The most common explanation is math, and it's called the ratio hypothesis, and it's probably the version you've already heard somewhere, in some form, without knowing there was a name for it. When you're 5, 1 year is 20% of your entire life, a fifth of everything you've ever known, everything you can compare it to. At 40, 1 year is 2.5%. Same 12 months, same 365 days, wildly different proportion of everything you've ever experienced, so the theory goes, your 5-year-old year feels enormous. Your 40-year-old year feels tiny, because your brain is unconsciously comparing each new year to the entire stack of years you've already lived. It's elegant. It's also incomplete, and here's how you know. If this were the whole story, time acceleration would be smooth and mathematically predictable, a clean curve. Slightly faster every single year, no exceptions. But that's not how it actually feels, and you already know this from your own life. Some years at 40 drag on forever. Some years at 20 vanished without a trace. A pure math ratio can't explain that kind of unevenness, which means something else is actually running the show underneath the numbers. Here's the thing about your brain. It doesn't have a clock. Not really. There's no internal stopwatch ticking away in there, quietly logging hours as they pass, ready to be read whenever you need to know how long something took. Instead, your brain estimates how long a period felt, after the fact, using a proxy the density of memories it actually encoded during that period. More distinct memories laid down, the stretch feels longer looking back on it. Fewer memories, even with the exact same number of actual hours elapsed, and it feels like it barely happened at all. Think about your commute if you've done it for years. You arrive at work most mornings with basically no memory of the drive itself, not the turns, not the traffic, none of it. Not because something's wrong with you, not because you weren't technically there, because your brain predicted the whole experience so well, so many times before, that it didn't bother encoding fresh detail. Why record something you've already got a perfectly good template for? Multiply that same efficiency across a full week, a full month, a full year of routine, and you end up with a year your own brain barely bothered to record in the first place. There's a second factor stacked on top of this one: emotional intensity. Strong emotion physically strengthens the encoding process. It's part of why you remember exactly where you were during a major shock, a big loss, a moment of real joy, with a clarity that ordinary Tuesdays never get. And novel experiences tend to carry more emotional charge than familiar ones almost automatically, simply because the outcome is genuinely unknown. So novelty and emotion reinforce each other, both pointing the same encoding system at the same rare, unfamiliar moments, and leaving the routine ones to fade by default. Now here's the part almost nobody asks, and it's the actual answer to the question in the title, the one that turns this from a mildly annoying quirk into something that actually makes sense. Why would a brain evolve to work like this at all? Why not just remember everything, evenly, all the time, with perfect fidelity? Because memory is expensive, metabolically and cognitively, and evolution does not spend limited resources for free ever. A brain that carefully encoded every predictable, repeated, low-stakes moment in equal detail would be a brain wasting energy it could be spending on something that actually mattered for staying alive. And what actually mattered, for most of human existence, was the unfamiliar, a new environment you'd never navigated before, an unknown threat that didn't match anything in your existing library of experience, an opportunity you genuinely never encountered, anything that might require a different response the next time you saw it. So the system that built human memory was never optimized to track the passage of time. It evolved to track change. Novelty gets the full recording budget, every time, no exceptions. Routine gets almost none, because routine, by definition, already told you everything you needed to know the first several times it happened. That's not a flaw in the system. It's the system working exactly as designed, just running inside a modern world that hands you a fraction of the genuine novelty it used to. It's worth being precise here about how settled this actually is. The general idea, more encoded experience, makes a period feel longer in memory, has been in the research since the late 1960s, but the current leading explanation has gotten more specific since then. It's less about the raw amount of memory stored, and more about how many distinct chapters your brain segments an experience into. Novelty creates new chapter breaks. Routine doesn't. Same underlying story, sharper mechanism, and like most active areas of neuroscience, this is still being refined, not a fact carved permanently in stone. There's a strange twist buried in this mechanism, and once you notice it, you genuinely can't unsee it. A boring day drags while you're living it, nothing to distract you from feeling every single minute pass, checking the clock, waiting for it to end, but it nearly vanishes afterward, because almost nothing got encoded in the first place. There's simply nothing there to remember. A genuinely engaging day, a trip somewhere new, a project that actually absorbs you, flies by. While it's happening, you barely notice the hours going, but it becomes enormous in memory afterward, because your brain was recording constantly, generating distinct moment after distinct moment to look back on. The days that feel longest in the moment are very often the shortest in memory. The days that feel shortest in the moment are very often the longest. That vacation week that seemed to disappear while you were living it will, months later, feel like it lasted longer than the 3 routine weeks on either side of it combined. Comfort, in other words, quietly steals time from your future memory of your own life, and almost nobody warns you about that trade before it's already been made, year after year, without you noticing it happening. One more piece worth knowing: who you're with changes this too. Time spent in real, attentive conversation with people you actually care about tends to generate the same kind of rich, distinct memory traces as novelty does, which is part of why isolated, lonely stretches of life often report as strangely blurry and hard to pin down afterward, even when nothing bad happened during them. Connection isn't just good for you in the ways you'd expect. It's also, in a very literal sense, a way of making time register as having happened at all. Here's where this stops being just a fun brain fact. Somebody figured this mechanism out too, at scale, and not to help you. The entire modern attention economy, the apps, the infinite feeds, the notifications engineered down to the millisecond, the autoplay that removes even the small decision to keep watching runs on dividing your attention as completely and as constantly as humanly possible. And attention is the exact, specific resource your brain needs to encode a memory in the first place. No attention, no encoding. No encoding, no memory. No memory, and as far as your own retrospective sense of time is concerned, that stretch of your life may as well not have happened. A year spent chronically half present, phone in hand during conversations. Attention sliced into hundreds of tiny interruptions a day generates dramatically fewer distinct memories than the same calendar year lived with your attention actually on what was happening in front of you. That's not a personal moral failing, and it's not a willpower problem you need to feel bad about. It's an entire industry's business model, built directly on top of the same ancient mechanism that made childhood summers feel infinite, an industry deliberately fragmenting the one resource your brain needs to make a year feel like it actually happened at all. Because a fragmented, distracted attention span is more profitable to sell ads against than a focused one. You're not imagining that time feels thinner lately, that it's slipping through your hands faster than it used to. Something with a real financial incentive is actively engineered to make it feel that way. So why does time speed up as you age? Not because the world is moving faster, and not because you're somehow doing anything wrong. Because familiarity is expanding year over year, and your brain, quite reasonably, by its own ancient energy-conscious logic, has simply stopped bothering to fully record what it already recognizes. That's not decline. That's a resource management system doing exactly the job it evolved to do, in an environment that keeps handing it less and less to actually do that job on. The good news, and this is the part worth actually holding on to, that mechanism responds to input in real time, starting immediately. It's not a life sentence, it's a setting you can adjust. A new route home from somewhere familiar, a food you've genuinely never tried before, a conversation with someone you'd normally just walk past without a second thought. None of it requires money. None of it requires a dramatic life overhaul, and every single bit of it hands your brain something new to actually encode. You can't go back and be 8 years old again, living through a summer that felt like it stretched on forever in every direction. But you can hand your brain more first times, starting today, at whatever age you happen to be reading this at. So here's the actual question worth sitting with. What's the last genuinely new thing you did, not a variation on something familiar? An actual first, and honestly, how long ago was it?